speaker works at the intersection of systems, governance, and insight, spaces that quietly shapes how societies function. Through his work and writing, he explores ideas that influence transparency, policy, and the way we understand value. Please welcome Mr. Smarak Swine, IRS officer and author.
Very good afternoon, everyone. We have all been there. We want to do something very simple, such as open a bank account for our first paycheck or send some funds to a cousin situated in another city. And when we do that, we come across a wall made of paperwork, which goes by a three-lettered acronym that sounds like a clinical diagnosis. KYC, that is Know Your Customer. It's everywhere and it's deeply entrenched. On today's date, you want a new SIM card, you need KYC. You go for any compliance, any license, you want to transfer funds somewhere, you need a student loan, you need KYC. They ask you all sorts of questions. What is your date of birth? What is the evidence that you were born? What is your pet's middle name? Who was your kindergarten teacher? It is bothering, it is pestering. But behind this bothering chore, have you ever thought, what is the cost involved? What is the economic cost of this inconvenience? And if there's so much of economic cost and it is bothersome, then why at all are we doing KYC? Today, I want to raise an issue which probably may sound underwhelming to you, but what I want to say is KYC is an issue which is going to take center stage in our lives. In a world which has been rewritten by AI, KYC is a very important component of the defense we have to protect our identity and our financial security. Going further, I would like to say that in the coming days, in the coming years, something similar to KYC is going to become very central to our life. KYC will not remain just a compliance requirement. It is going to become a personal responsibility. KYC will turn into KYR, Know Your Reality. In order to understand this better, we'll take a step back and we'll try to understand the origin story of KYC. So some 50, 60 years back, banking was pretty simple. You can walk into you could walk into a local bank in a small town, and the bank manager will not demand any government ID from you, because the bank manager most probably knew your father, he knew your grandfather, he knew that you are that person who, as a kid, used to bunk classes to go to the local fair. Trust was localized. And starting a banking relationship was just like doing a handshake. At that time, knowing you was basically a multi-factor authentication. But times have changed. In the 1970s, the world grew smaller. It continues to grow smaller. In the 1970s, the world grew smaller, and monetary transactions through banks become faster. When monetary transactions become faster, it is easier to do layering of funds and hide the origin of funds. So in the 1970s, drug lords started misusing banking system for laundering the proceeds of drug trafficking. And then the world responded. Countries started framing rules for due diligence, which required banks to do KYC. In the 1990s, the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF, came around, and it made global standards on KYC, due to which KYC has now become a mandatory part of the economy. While we scaled up KYC the last few decades, we also turned it into a bureaucracy. What we did is, we did more and more KYC, and this affected some sections of the population. For people who remain on the margins, KYC became more of a barrier than a check. In Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, surveys have shown that about 75% of households have experienced some form of bank account freeze because of KYC issues. Take the case of Sunita Oraon, a woman in rural India. Her bank account was kept frozen for 3 years because of a typo in her government ID, because her name in her bank account did not match with the name in her government ID. She went through 3 years of financial exile. Now, financial inclusion is a very, very critical part of economic security as well as development. But what KYC does is, it leads to financial exclusion. The more bothersome issue is, why do we do KYC if it has so much of economic cost, if it has so much of developmental cost, if the compliance is bothersome? Well, the thing is that policymakers want to do less KYC. At the same time, policymakers are faced with another constraint. They need to trust the customer. They want the bank to trust the customer. And we do not know whether the customer who is coming to them is a fraudster or not. So KYC is a critical way of preventing fraud and money laundering. We are living in times which have seen an epidemic of cyber-enabled fraud. If you look at government statistics, in the last 1 year alone, Indians lost 22,000 crore of rupees to cyber-enabled fraud, which translates into $2.5 billion US. And this kind of cyber-enabled frauds are facilitated by an ecosystem of mule accounts. So if you want to visualize mule accounts, visualize them in this way, that you have a physical donkey or physical mule. I, as a cyber fraudster, I will hire the mule from you, and I'll make the mule carry money for me from one point to another. So what generally happens is that a fraudster who makes a cyber attack on you is usually located offshore. However, they hire people in your country, in India, in our country, and they pay a small commission for controlling their bank account. So these bank accounts become conduit for stealing money from Indians and channeling them to offshore bank accounts. To counter this cyber-enabled fraud, what we need to do is more KYC. So banks want to do more KYC. So they do something called re-KYC or a repeat KYC whenever they see a suspicious transaction in the bank account of a college student, or if they see funny transactions in a bank account which do not match with the profile of the customer. So in a way, what the policymakers are trying to do is, what the bankers are trying to do, what the regulators are trying to do is, they want to do less KYC, and at the same time, they want to do more KYC. So they do understand your constraints, they do understand your compulsions. At the same time, they need to protect the financial system, they need to protect the integrity of the financial system. So over the last 3 or 4 years, many entrepreneurs have come up with very innovative solutions for this issue. They have come up with digital solutions, which we call a digital ID. Digital government IDs have been released by governments, and eKYC is being done, video KYC is being done, which is enabling people to do KYC within a matter of minutes. So the solution has been more KYC, but easy KYC. More KYC, but easy KYC. But just when the solution was made available, and we started enjoying this solution of more KYC, but easy KYC, dawned a new era, the era of artificial intelligence. Now, the era of artificial intelligence is a completely different ball game altogether. As per cybersecurity reports, in the last 3 years, the number of deepfake attacks have increased by 2,000%. Now, what happens in a deepfake attack is that you do not know what is real, your reality is being compromised. Take the case of an oft-repeated, oft-quoted case of 2024. A finance manager went on a VC call with his colleagues and his CFO. He knew them very well. He knew their voices. They were all speaking with him. They were all joking with him. They were nodding. And there was a very intense discussion, after which the CFO gave him a direction to transfer $25 million to a secret account in a tax haven. And he made the transfer. Except that, later he realized that none of them was real. No one in the room except him was real. All of them were deepfakes. On today's date, when you get a call from your boss giving you some certain instructions, you do not know if that boss is real or not. If your daughter calls you in panic and says that her phone has died and she needs a transfer into a Paytm account, you do not know what to do about it. It has become so much easy to generate a genuine voice just on the basis of a 10-second Instagram clip. It has become so easy to generate videos which can pass any liveness test. So, in a way, we are seeing a world in which everyone has a responsibility to do a verification. Now, 5 years back or 3 years back, the responsibility of verification was limited to a bank or any financial institution or any shopkeeper. But on today's date, the responsibility is a personal responsibility that each and every person has to undergo. What about the banks? How are the banks coping with it? AI and deepfakes have enabled fraudsters to generate government IDs which look very, very genuine, government IDs, passports, documentation within a matter of minutes. So, and in a video KYC process, a bank does not know whether the person on the other side of the video KYC is a genuine person or not. So how do banks deal with this? So banks have come up with 2 different strategies to deal with this. The first strategy is to buy new software and utilize new software which detect deepfakes. These software have a lot of false positives, and they don't come cheap. So the compliance burden increases. The other category of banks are going back to the 1970s and 1980s. They are requiring customers to come physically to the bank and bring with them a lot of KYC documentation. So both of them have their own pitfalls. Probably the way forward is for AI to be countered with AI. Probably the way forward is for banks to be cynic and ask a lot of questions. Now, coming to you. The central idea of this talk is that AI has enabled the democratization of impersonation. Anyone can impersonate anyone, which means that KYC has to be morphed into something else. Know your reality. On today's date, the biggest defense you have against cyber-enabled fraud is not a passport, is not a password, or an encryption technology. It is your skepticism. You need to verify, and you need to make it a process of a part of your daily life. It has to become a way of life. Skepticism needs to become a way of life. You need to ask questions each and every time you get a call, each and every time you interact with a digital economy. So friends, in 2026, resolve to know your customer, know your friends, but more importantly, to know your reality. Thank you.